Daines, and then Senator Peters.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here today. It's exciting to hear you all talk about the new technologies and how the U.S. can truly remain a leader in innovation. I know we chatted a little about overbuilding, about efficiencies and so forth, and thanks for the support too on the Dig Once amendment. I think it's a step forward, and Chairman Wheeler, your enhancement to that is something we ought to be looking at as well to expand that. Chairman Wheeler, you've often talked about the need to make sure that the universal service programs are well managed and they're efficient. I certainly agree. But then I see the Commission awarding money to entities in areas that already have access to fiber, perhaps overbuilding, some redundancies, insisting that we upgrade speeds in urban areas. Well, certainly for many of us who are looking and representing rural areas, we are underserved. Can you really say that that is an efficient use of universal service funds? And should the Commission be focusing on areas that have no connectivity, like many areas in Montana and for members here in this committee?
No and yes. So no, it is not an efficient use of funds to subsidize competition, and that's not something that should be going on. Can we do something about it? Yes, and I believe we are. Now, just one of the issues that I know you and I have talked about and other members of the committee is the mobility fund. And we're going to come out with a new proposal for how we fill, what'd you call those, the high-fat donut holes or something, like the unhealthy donut holes. But we've got to do that in a way that does not subsidize the donut where there is competition. Because we've got, for instance, at least 4 licensees who are not covering that donut hole. We want to make sure that we support one of them, to fill the hole, but not to take that money and compete with the others around. And that's going to be an art form, but that's something that we're hard at work at.
I want to, and that plays important for rural states where we are dependent on our small businesses, truly the backbone. I had that experience myself in the software business in Montana. A lot of the Commission's recent proposals, from net neutrality rules to the set-top box proposal, seem to disproportionately impact small businesses who do not have hallways full of compliance staff. In fact, I hear more than anything else from small business owners about the compliance burdens that they routinely face. And I want to thank, by the way, the 4 of the commissioners here who have been to Montana, I think in the last 6 months. I think we could put you on the payroll for the Montana Chamber of Commerce. And so you get the quality of life draw and how that's an important part of how we can drive this economy. Commissioner O'Reilly, you visited Montana, and you had the opportunity to see firsthand how small business owners contribute to the state. Many of these businesses only have a handful of employees, do not have armies of lawyers to wade through the thousands of pages of regulations. Do you agree it's reasonable to exempt small businesses from some of these regulatory burdens, such as the enhanced transparency rules?
Absolutely, and I know you have legislation on this front. I know there's legislation considered in the House on this front, but we, my colleague and I, Commissioner Pai, have articulated a viewpoint that this should have been addressed by the Commission. It wasn't sufficiently, in our opinion. This should be something we can do, and your legislation would adequately and properly address this.
I mean, is it, and Commissioner Pai, is that common sense? I mean, to try to kind of stratify this to a certain degree in terms of, I mean, it's an overused term in D.C. about one size doesn't always fit all, but I think that makes sense for these smaller businesses.
Particularly on this issue, Senator, both the Obama administration, Small Business Administration, and literally every person who submitted a comment or a reply comment in our record suggested this burden was undue and that the agency should relieve them of that.
Commissioner Rosenworcel.
I agree with my colleagues here to the right, and this is something we can do at the agency. We have exempted small businesses from the enhanced transparency rule for the next year, but I think it would be useful if the agency contemplated a longer or permanent exemption.
And that certainly, it's regulations and uncertainty. That's the 1-2 punch. And so thanks for that added piece of trying to provide some certainty here for our small businesses. I want to pivot over to broadcasting. Chairman Wheeler, you've clearly prioritized unlicensed spectrum in the upcoming incentive auction. Under the current proposal, it's not clear that some low-power stations and translators will even be able to stay on the air. This is a big deal, certainly, back home. What assurances can you give to these small businesses who may be forced off the air, and to the Montana communities who rely on translators to receive the broadcast signals, including the Denver Broncos.
So, thank you, Senator. As I indicated before, we don't really know what the auction is going to produce. I think that the impact in areas like Montana will be different than the impact in other parts of the country, and that's a saving grace for you. But what we have done is to say that for low-power television, we will make special efforts, even though it was never addressed in the statute. And specifically, there was no priority or dealing with the low-power challenge. We said we will help them find new channels, we will help them share, and in fact, that sharing may even end up with Class A status. I mean, this is something we've heard you loud and clear. I know that it is a matter of angst because people don't know until they know. But when we all know, we're ready to spring to action.
Thank you. And anxious is a good word. Scared to death also describes it back home in Montana. Thanks for your concern for that, Chairman Woodland. Appreciate it.